during that space that Bobby hosted, and I just pinned it to the nest here in this one. I hope everybody listening will take a moment to vote in that. I asked the question, since we're talking about making America affordable again, the poll question is, how many jobs are you working to make ends meet? And it's a topic that I hope we would have had time for with Bobby tonight. That's only an hour, and there's so much to cover, and so many people have questions that we just didn't get to it. But I think it's very important to bring up that 76 million Americans are gig workers today. They're working 2 or 3 part-time jobs to equal 1 full-time job, and they still aren't getting the kind of pay they would get or the benefits they would get with 1 full-time job. They're also having to assume their own income tax burden. Of course, those of you out there who are self-employed, gig workers, 1099 workers, you pay your own income tax and your own Social Security and all that. It gets very, very burdensome at tax time. I really believe that Bobby needs to look at a solution to getting real jobs back in America, because we are quickly turning into a gig economy, and all those good full-time jobs with benefits, they're going away between AI and just relegating regular human workers to 1099 workers, to where you are actually self-employed, but they still try and treat you like an employee. So it's skirting the bounds of legality. I believe it's unethical. I think it's bad for the American people. We all know it's bad. Those of you who are gig workers, you're probably driving for Uber and working another part-time job and, doing whatever side hustle you can do to make ends meet, to keep up with the Biden inflation. I am too. I just took a 3rd job, another 3rd part-time contract job. And I know a lot of you out there feel me. And by the looks of the poll results, too many of you are having to work 3 jobs to make ends meet. And by the way, I'm in my 50s with a college degree and a long history of journalism. But even journalism jobs now are contract labor, 1099 labor, part-time, occasional, temporary. So obviously the companies don't have any regard for us, the human workers, and they're weeding us out to replace us with AI. And that was a great question, Holden, that you asked Bobby tonight about AI, because it's a big factor here too. So I just wanted to throw that in. We will get to what Bobby's plans are for a jobs program on a future space, I'm sure.
Yeah, would you like to hear a sad story?
Sure.
No.
Break my heart.
My daughter is 36 years old. She has 4 boys that are all on the autism spectrum. And her husband works. And if it wasn't for her father giving her a home, they would not be able to make it. And not only that, if she did turn around and get a job, the only thing she'd be paying for is daycare. They make too much money, or her husband makes too much money for them to get food stamps. Now that's sad.
I can relate to that. During the pandemic, my income dipped so low when I lost my job that I had to go on food stamps, like a lot of Americans, for the very first time in our entire lives.
I am legally blind. I do not work. I am legally blind. I live off of $900 a month.
Disability?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's
ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Exactly.
It is.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I am 58 years old. So all you kids that are talking about space continuum and all that, I'll never see that in my time. We're more worried about where we're going to eat and how we're going to pay our rent.
That's right.
And that's more important to Mr. Kennedy than any candidate that's ever been out there.
Absolutely.
And I know that for a fact. because he's a good man. The Kennedys have always been good for this country. Always. My mama worshiped the Kennedys. I mean, she really did. I mean, she had nothing but good things to say about them. And
Yeah, I love that.
it just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. And these four kids of mine that are my grandchildren, they have autism. Some of them may never ever work a job because of that reason. And we don't even know where it came from. We don't know if it was genetics. We don't know if it was vaccines. We don't know anything.
And that's because it hasn't been a priority for any other administration. You know, Bobby talks a lot about how the vaccine schedule was changed in the 80s, and, you know, how many vaccines kids have had to take. I think it's 72 that are mandated for kids. I mean,
Yeah.
and at
25 before
least,
the age of 2. 25 vaccines before the age of 2.
wow.
That
And,
is
you know, no
so
one else has even bothered to look into it.
disgusting.
At least you know that a Kennedy administration will make darn sure that this is looked into and studied and that we finally get some answers. But it really hasn't been a priority, of course, for, you know, the NIH with Fauci. That was never on their priority list, and you can probably imagine why. They had to keep their corporate sponsors happy.
Of course.
Um,
Big
and
Pharma.
something that really got me last night, I don't know about you, listening to the Republican debate, if you caught the GOP debate last night, how they were talking about cutting Social Security for, you know, people who are young, like people who are Holden's age, and raising the minimum age to qualify for Social Security. Now, I know when you're Holden's age at 22 or so, you're probably not thinking much about your retirement. You're not, you're thinking 65 is a long ways away, or 70 or 75, however high they want to raise that.
But it's
Um,
not. It's not a long ways away, believe me.
It'll be here before you know it, guys. One day you'll
Yeah,
wake up and you're 50 or
I
70.
think a lot of us know because even when I was 20, I was in conversations about that stuff. But the thing is, like, it's pretty much guaranteed that they're going to do that, that our generation, people who are 20s and 30s now are not going to see that because they're doing everything in their power to cut those programs. For example, they've already spent the budget for them. So
But
they've
Mr.
already
Kennedy is
overspent.
not going to. Mr. Kennedy is not going to let that happen.
Well, yeah, he definitely wouldn't like that policy, but even if he did everything right, he would still have to undo 20 years of them overspending that pot of money. So it would still have to take several past his 4 years. It would take like another 10 years of following Kennedy's policies to
Well, then
replenish
he's
that
just going to
that
have
pot.
to groom somebody to follow him.
Okay.
He's
I
going to
want I
have
want to
to
get to
find
a couple
somebody
other
that's
hands here.
good.
Is I want to get to a couple other hands. Crystal, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. And I want to say one thing on this too is in one of my classes a couple of years ago, one of my college classes, we were debating Social Security, and virtually everybody in the class was under the impression of like, yeah, this isn't going to be here for us when we're older. Like, why
Yeah.
should we be spending money? You know, why should I have to pay into this if it's not going to be here? And so I sincerely hope, you know, that's not the case. I think it's a tremendous benefit, but yeah, young people are not, and this is why young people are resonating with Bobby so much, right? You know, he's resonating really well with young people in particular. And I think, you know, that has to do with AI as well. That has to do with the housing, his housing plan, that, you know, young people are look at the future right now and don't see any way of how we're ever going to afford basic things like a home. So yeah, thank you, Crystal. I appreciate you being here tonight. And I just want to mention to other people on this stage, don't be offended. I dropped a couple people down. Please don't be offended if I drop you down. We're just cycling through some other speakers right now.
Well,
But
it's something else. I don't know how. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude, but I'm legally blind and I don't know how to raise my hand. I don't know how to do any of that.
that's okay. That's okay. No, no worries. That's all right. I'm gonna. So if the button is the little heart button, but it's okay. You know, this is kind of a casual space right now as well. So, Crystal, I appreciate you being up here and chatting with us tonight. Bryce, I'm going to go over to you. Bryce, thank you. You've been very patient, my friend. So go ahead and jump in, and then I'll get over to Sherry as well. Bryce, how are you doing? What's on your mind?
I'm doing well. Listen, I don't think the space was great. It was a little disorganized, and I hope as he goes forward it gets better. But it doesn't matter because Kennedy is so great. That just really doesn't matter if the space isn't good. Our candidate he's just so damn good and so spot on. It doesn't matter if everything else doesn't work. It doesn't matter if the CIA is trying to fuck with us. We still get what we want to hear. But I'm going to tell you something, Crystal. I'm glad that you said something because listen, some of us that talk about space or talk about a lot of the other things, except for the expense of the groceries, expensive groceries, the amount of jobs that people have to have. I'm going to tell you something about those people, and I am also one of them. I've noticed a lot of that is privilege, right? There's a lot of people that don't understand what it's like to work three jobs, that it doesn't understand what it's like to come from a home that's never had to struggle. So we talk, people will start talking about things that get them excited, like the space race, all of those things. What's so wonderful, and especially for me, is that I hear people like you and I hear stories from real Americans so that I can understand what it's like for other people out there struggling. And I have there's a young woman down the road from us. She's about to lose her home. And how sad is that? Everything right. Job disappeared during the pandemic. Went to school. She's in her 50s and she can't find any work because nobody will hire her. I talk about ageism, right? She's in her mid 50s and she just can't find work because it's cheaper for somebody to hire a millennial that
I
has an
feel that.
associate's degree.
I feel that, Bryce. I'm having the same issue myself.
It's
in my
unfortunate.
50s, highly qualified, and of course, the younger candidate always gets the job.
And thank God that Kennedy's not a younger candidate and remembers what the '60s were like. So I think that we all can breathe just a little sigh of relief. But really, what we need to do, guys, we need to get this man on the ballots in our state.
Well, he
So let's
definitely
get
gives me
him
hope.
on the ballot.
He gives me hope. That's what he gives me.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I think a lot of people do share that sentiment right now that, he's giving a lot of people hope who had not seen it anywhere in their, anywhere in our political lives, at least, before. So thank you, Crystal, so much. I appreciate you being up here. There's a lot of hands up now. This kind of it blew up, but Sherry, you were next. Go ahead and jump in, and then I want to get over to Robin. But Sherry, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. Crystal almost made me cry. It just gives me flashbacks to what I had to go through with the system. Thank you for letting me speak, Holden. I know I've never been in your space before, so I appreciate it. And I have a whole page full of notes from what people have been talking about. But first, Crystal, I just wanted to say, if you can get any help from the churches, you're better off than trying to get help from the government as a citizen here. I went through kind of a similar situation. And first I want to say too, that Social Security is not based on your age. So when I was younger, I was working since I was 9. My mom was asking me, when are you going to go get married and move out or get a job? So I was working. And at 14, I legally started paying taxes. Through high school, I took honors classes. I worked 3 jobs. And by the time I was discharged from the military, when I was 21, I still wanted to help people. Like, I had to change my diet. We were talking about organic farming and eating organic food. So I got so sick. I was working for a Fortune 500 company and I couldn't even get out of bed in the morning because I was throwing up. And when I went to the county to ask for help, they told me that my student loans were considered income and I would have to drop out of college, which I was getting my bachelor's in health and wellness at that point. They told me I had to drop out of college to get money. Well, my mom was telling me that the immigrants that were on her property were going to the county and they were telling them not to work and giving them all the benefits, like the ones from the Middle East. And so I struggled. I had to go against my beliefs to survive at that point.
I know. I've been there, done that.
Yeah. And I grew up below poverty and my family served 5 generations since they came to this country and immigrated here and were self-made people at one point. And I just wanted to comment too on the on the organic farming. You know, I think everybody should have an organic farm. I think we should emulate New Zealand, where everybody grows their crops, they share with their neighbors, and you know, it would help a lot with the medical issues. Like, I grew up with my mom went to the food shelf. That's all I ate growing up. I never had an organic food until I was 25 years old, and once I had to cut out gluten, soy, dairy, corn, and sugar out of my diet, my grocery bill went sky high. And that's when I went to the county and I'm like, can you help me? You know, I'm trying to get my degree. I want to go back and work for the federal government. I want to help people. And when they told me, when they had told me that to drop out of school just to be able to eat, I was like, no, you know, I'm like, I'm going to help people, you know? And the craziest thing is, like, I just remember hearing all of these lawsuits that were going on. Like, I don't know if anybody knows this, but in order to have a certified organic farm, their land and their soil has to be organic for at least 6 years. And at one point, Monsanto, they would drive their trucks and they'd transport their crops. These crops would float over, like the seeds would float into the organic fields. And so the organic farmers started suing Monsanto because they were contaminating their fields.
Oh,
and you
wow.
know what Monsanto did? They turned around and they sued the organic farmers for patent infringement. That's what they were doing. And it's just like, it's the most evil, corrupt thing I've ever seen in my life. When I stopped eating all that shit, I'm sorry to say, but it's just shit. Like, my whole perception of reality changed. I probably would have been diagnosed on the autism spectrum back then. And I'm getting better now. I had a bunch of metal put in my mouth I was allergic to, got that out. And my whole life is changing. But it's like, I get disability from the VA and I get SSDI. I actually qualified for disability with Social Security by the time I was 20. And when they told me that I was going to be permanently disabled for the rest of my life when I got out of the service, I couldn't do it. Like, it took me 4 years to apply for SSDI, even though I was disabled. I just couldn't put my pride aside and say that I needed that help, you know, because that's how my family was.
For sure.
And it was like, it's just, everything is so backwards. I went to the Social Security office. I said, I think all this metal in my mouth is what's making me disabled. I had 2 teeth break. And all of a sudden I started feeling better. I was having panic attacks at the dentist, and I loved the dentist. There was no explanation for it. And they told me, nope, I'm sorry, we don't have any programs like that. When I came to get assistance, because I was going to do massage therapy to make money until I could become a doctor, I wanted to go to medical school and become a naturopathic doctor. The one lady I still remember to this day, when I was in San Diego, I went into the office and she goes, if you want to be a doctor, you should stop wasting your time with holistic medicine. I went to the VA to get help because, like I said, I had to go against my beliefs and do things just to make money to survive at that point. And Social Security is based on how much stress you've been under. And it's based on the stress that your jobs put you under up until that point. So, like, somebody could qualify in the military a lot sooner than somebody that isn't. And yeah, it was horrifying. And I went to the VA, and you know what they told me? I said, I'm using holistic medicine. It says here that you guys will pay to help me get better so I can go back to work. And they told me it's psychological. It's not real.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. As a long COVID sufferer, I understand. I've had long COVID for 4 years and should be disabled, and it's very hard to qualify.
Well, the thing
and
is,
they tell you it's all in your head.
Yeah, and like when we had COVID in 2019, I'm sorry, I don't know how I got muted. My AirPods died or something. But when we had COVID, I treated me and my son with oregano oil and BioK, and it gave me the shingles. We didn't even know what it was at that point. Within a week, I didn't have shingles. Every person I've ever talked to is sick with shingles for 2-3 months. They're in pain. Not even a week, I was healed. And I'm like, you can't tell me that this medicine isn't real. And it's, you know, I know one good thing that Obama did. I mean, I've never voted Democrat, but he did have a good plan in place where he was going to put naturopathic doctors as primary physicians, and then you would go to them first. And then if you needed emergency medicine, you would go to a medical doctor. And I don't remember the exact number, but I want to say it was 22 billion. I was in school during this time, so I had access to NCAM. And so that's the National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine. And I mean, he had so many research projects out there for chiropractic care, for herbal supplements. And that's where all these NIH studies were coming from that we can find now online. And we have like evidence to back up what we're saying so people believe us. I'm saying us as in the people that do believe in holistic medicine.
I know, and I think Bobby has a plan for that too as well.
Yeah, because this needs to change. Like, these companies put these chemicals in our food to make us addicted to them, just like the cigarette companies did. There's Native Americans out there that smoke cigarettes with no filters. They don't get cancer. They smoke their whole lives. And people are dying of cancer left and right from smoking. And I'm like, it's the chemicals. It's the chemicals. I can't even be around people that smoke Marlboros or Camels anymore. I have environmental sickness. Like, I'm sensitive to VOCs. I'm restricted at where I can even go in this country at this point because of the air pollution. And just driving through Chicago made me sick. I've ended up in the hospital with excruciating pain to the point where I'm throwing up and they can't explain it. They're like, we don't know what's wrong. I've been accused of being a drug addict before because I tell them I react to pharmaceuticals. This is the only painkiller you can give me so I can feel better and I can eat again. And I'm accused of being a drug addict. And I'm just like, I've gotten so far away from this medical system, and the further I get, the better I feel. And like, that's the reason that I'm voting for him and running. I'm trying to promote his campaign here because he is our last hope for this country. And I sit here and I look at all these other countries that have better healthcare. They'll properly diagnose me. They'll treat me for free. And it's like, no place is better than the US. What the US stands for and what it's supposed to be, like, there's no place that's better than here. And so I look at moving out of the country and I'm like, well, it's all right, but I really, I want what we stand for. I want what I fought for. I want what I signed up for our freedom for. And it's been really hard. So like I said, Crystal, I don't know if you're even if you're not religious, like, go to the churches. They have, like, they'll give you gift cards. They're so nice. They're such nice people. And if you can't access those, just start calling around and just explain to them your story. And I promise you'll get so much more help from these churches than going to your county government. So, and the only other thing I wanted to comment on was NASA, like the space stuff and going to Mars. I think it was like 2009 or 10. I used to like cruise YouTube and the internet, and I, just follow my trains of thought wherever they led me. And I remember stumbling upon Russia's NASA page. I don't speak Russian, so I couldn't like really read it. I had to like look at the pictures and kind of try to figure out what's going on. But Russia's been trying to habitate Mars since then, like 2009 or 10. So I don't know. Like, I just wanted to throw that out there too. That's all I have to say.
Yeah,
I took
the
a lot of
main way to
time.
space is through Kazakhstan. So actually, up until SpaceX, the only way any human went to space is through Kazakhstan. But yeah, those plans, a lot of them are conjecture. They're just like ours. Like Elon Musk has a plan, but that doesn't mean it's getting operationalized at this point. But yeah, I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, Sherry, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I appreciate you sharing your story. I think getting away, what you said about, getting away from the healthcare system and starting to feel better. I think that a lot of people are on the same page with that for sure.
Holden, can I just
And
jump in for a second?
hold on, Bryce. I want to
Hey,
get to
Levi, I
Robin. I
just
want to
heard
get to
that you
Rob.
ran for
Bryce,
Congress.
Bryce, hold on.
Congratulations.
Robin, go ahead and jump in, please. And then Gregory, I know you've been trying to jump in as well, but Robin hasn't gotten a chance to speak yet. So,
No
Robin, go
problem.
ahead. How are you doing tonight?
Thank you. Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Oh, good. Okay. I enjoyed tonight. I really did. I enjoyed the meeting with the Zoom meeting as well. When Kennedy came on, he was such an inspiration. He was laughing and smiling. I don't know. Some of you guys probably were there. And I just feel really good about the campaign right now. I just want to say that up front. And I really do like him having the spaces, and they all said tonight at the end, it's see you next week, so they're having another one, and I love that. And to all of you who have shared your stories, I've heard most of the space. I was cooking my dinner during some of it, but basically we have all had our stories, and I'm going to be 66 in a week. And I struggled too in my 50s trying to get another job when I left an abusive job. Basically, it was a county job, lovely library job. I loved the work, but the administration was horrible. And there were violating our contract, and I happened to be a union steward and a union VP for my library unit. So they were after us because we were reporting work violations and unfair labor practice stuff. So anyway, it was a hellish end of my career there, but I loved the work and I would die to go back to a library. Anyway, that's to be put aside. It's really difficult. I mean, I was lucky enough to have an education in, Lori, look into substitute teaching. They need substitute teachers. And if you have a degree, that's pretty much all you need. And you can get a substitute, 30-day substitute thing that lasts you all year. And then you just have to renew it every year. So I'm just putting that out. So anyway, it's really been good to hear the stories because we all have our walk. And it's sad that, this nation, I feel like, our country does not respect elders as we get up here and we've done a lot in our lives. And we really have a lot more to give. I'm really feeling a lot of energy from volunteering with Kennedy. That's been, kind of given me, a new sense of energy. I'm actually having to go, God, I have to like look at my calendar now. I have to like figure things out because I'm, I have a life outside of, volunteering, but I've like become this kind of obsessive compulsive on this stuff. So it's just like crazy. So I'm feeling like I have to get back into like a work mode, and check my emails and check the Slack and check the Zoom and check, it's crazy.
You sound like me, Robin. I'm the same way.
So anyway, yeah. And then, about the Social Security, I wanted to say something about that. I don't remember who said it, but that's a misnomer. Okay. It really is. The Uniparty wants to use that as a cudgel. They want to use that as a fear-mongering thing.
A scare tactic.
It is. It's definitely, because they've been saying that for years. Okay. And I'm 66. I had to wait. They extended mine. I had, instead of being able to get my retirement earlier, I have to wait another 6 months. And, which is, been a tough thing for me. I mean, I'm lucky I've had some things from like a prior job in corporate world where I put money away in their system, but, it's not easy. It's really not easy. And it's, kind of hard to feel like, God, should I go get, see if I qualify for, food stamps or whatever that is. So, it doesn't make you feel like you're very respected when you finally reach this age and you're having trouble getting work, you're having to work more. And it's just harder. Well, of course, we've had all this inflation, this Bidenomics stuff, which has made it super difficult since the pandemic to even kind of survive. I mean, I don't know how people are doing it really. But anyway, Social Security is going to be there. If you're putting into Social Security, you're going to have that, and you basically have to have work credits. So if you work enough work credits, which you'll have to look at that as you get older, but there's 40 work credits. I think I was okay, like in my 50s. I could have taken it at 62. Okay, I could have taken Social Security at 62. It was been reduced. So I've been trying to like white knuckle it, to see if I could get my full benefit. Because I feel like, I put that money in there. I deserve that money. It's not like it's considered an entitlement. We earned that. We earned our Social Security. We paid it out of our checks every time.
You did.
Excuse me. Sorry, 1 second. We put into it every time I got a paycheck. Money went into the government for my Social Security, and so I think it's fear mongering. When Biden came in, I think it was during his speech in the House or whatever that was. Even the Republicans stood up. They said they were not going to take Social Security away. They were not going to cut it. So they are don't I don't know who's telling you guys that. I mean, my son has said the same. My son is 45 and I have a 30-year-old, and they both feel like they're not going to have Social Security. That's fear. Okay? Because they've been hearing it through whatever avenues they hear it. It's just not true. It's there. We're putting into it. And, as long as people are putting into that fund, It may change a little because I'm hearing now tonight with you guys that they're going to extend the age again. When I heard that, my eyebrows went up. I was like, again? That's just so unfair. That they think, oh, you're living longer. You should be able to keep working longer. Well, guess what? I want quality of life in my age, I'm not, able to do exactly everything I did 10 years ago. Sorry, but I'm not. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I just really appreciate all of you. You guys are so great. I was in that meeting tonight and I was scrolling down in there. I'm like, look at all the people I know in here. We're all Kennedy lovers. It was just so great to see all of you there. It was just really, really fun meeting.
Yeah, I love these meetings coming together as, we're learning how to use X Spaces together, the team. And, I hope, more people get a chance to ask some questions too, for sure. I love getting together with this community, and it's, I think a lot of movements say this, but you really are getting people from all over the life experience spectrum, the political spectrum. There's all kinds of different people who are support. I mean, the point I always go to is just that in my life, the biggest Trump supporter I know, who was still all on board with Trump, he never broke with him on anything, but he's now likes Kennedy better and is going to vote Kennedy in 2024. And also my grandma, who was Hillary Clinton's biggest fan in 2016, is also voting Kennedy. Like that doesn't happen. That very rarely happens. There's not a lot of stories like that. So you're getting people from all over the life experience spectrum, different political backgrounds, everything. And I really appreciate getting to spend time with this community for sure. I'm grateful that I get to host these and chat with all of you. But let's get over to Gregory. Greg, I know you've been waiting for Gregor. Sorry, I know you've been waiting
That's
for a
great.
little bit. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
I'm
my
okay.
friend.
Well, I wanted to say something to Indy. I think she's the one. I think she was one of the end of the daycare program. That's one of the things that I'm bringing up because I'm running for Congress in Texas. Is I'm a single parent, and to raise a child by yourself as a guy, very hard compared to. And I'm not trying to compare from women. I mean, it's very hard being a single parent. Period. But when it comes to getting help, women get help a little bit easier. What I want to do is if you get into a company that is like 50 people or more, they have to provide daycare for single parents and parents that need daycare so that they don't have to end up working and paying the daycare and not having any money to live with. That's one thing that I'm running with. The other thing is to Sherry, thank you for your service. I served in the United States Navy and the Army, and I'm a disabled vet. I was EOD and bit a bullet, so living with it. But at least I survived, so I can raise my daughter. Um, for what we are doing is representing one. I'm going to call him this, and I'll keep it this way, President Kennedy, because if you say it, it happens. So President Kennedy, he will do the things that he's saying. I've read about him, and I had to do a documentary paperwork for when I got my commission of his uncle. And I've known a lot about him because of my parents. My parents are immigrants to this country, and we came in the legal way and the hard way. And another part that I'm going to be working on is for veterans, that we will start supporting our veterans for mental health, physical health, and family connection, because a soldier isn't alone if they're married. They're not alone with their family. We got to support all avenues, because if we do not do these supports, we're losing 5% out of if I don't know how to put it. If there's 100 people, 5% of them are veterans committing suicide. That's got to stop. We got to stop putting illegal immigrants in front of veterans. We got to quit putting people in front of the people that are sacrificing their lives for the freedoms that everybody is having in this country and giving shit to everybody else. And excuse the language, I very much speak my mind and I don't hold back. That's why I know I've been hearing from a lot of people in these rooms that they would vote for me because I speak the truth and I speak from my heart. I'm not viable, and I know what it feels like to go paycheck to paycheck. I still do, and I still will. Um, but I'm tired of these hypocrite politicians, the corruption, and the way that this government is treating the elderly, the mental health, and the people that need help. They're just spitting on them. And that's got to stop. And with Kennedy, President Kennedy, he's going to rock it. He's going to take it away. He's going to make sure that everybody has a voice and everybody's going to have their constitutional rights without any dilemma. And the other thing is this, if I offend anybody, I'm not apologizing. Get some thick skin. I'm tired of this transgender shit. I'm tired of this freaking pronoun shit. And I'm tired of this other crap that they're pushing. They're pushing it down our throats. And as a constitutional right, we have a freedom of speech. We can say whatever the hell we want, when we want, how we want. This is the only country you can sit there and piss on the freaking president, name and anything else, and you don't go to prison or disappear like you would in China. So this is the things that soldiers like us have done. We've given our lives for the freedom, and we should stand by our veterans and not throw them in the corner or under the rug. That's all I got to say. Love y'all, and thank you for supporting our President Kennedy.
Amen.
Love you, brother. Yeah, thank you for being here. I would love to have you in, any future spaces too. I would love to help out your campaign however we can.
I'll be
I
there.
think Love it, brother. I love it. Thank you for being here again. I think, in the first space Bobby held a week ago, the question I asked was about, this building a coalition, of down ballot, other independents and, third parties, other than that as well, but mainly chiefly around independents, to build this into a broader movement, a broader coalition to win, down ballot races. And I would love to see that really develop into something. Hope you'd be a part of that.
Well, I will say one thing. Here in Texas, you have only two things. You got Republican, you got Democrat. And the thing is my challenge is going to be very, very hard. But due to what is going on right now, people are switching. I call it the flag. I don't do purple. Sorry. I will never touch purple. It's red, white, and blue. The red is the Republicans, blue is the Democrats, the white is independent. Because we think cleanly and clearly, not all fuzzled and buzzled. So for me, I prefer to have a white, and I made a hashtag called sorry, my brain has jacked up. We the people 2024, because that is when we will take control of this damn nation.
I'm with you, brother. Amen. I want to turn it over. Holly, I want to give you a chance to jump in here if you'd like. You were on the space tonight, and I'm really glad that you could join us here. So what's on your mind?
Hi, Holden. Thank you for allowing me to infiltrate your guys' after party. And I love that you guys are doing this. And I will personally make sure Mr. Kennedy is aware of the thoughts and concerns that you guys shared and the vulnerability. So thank you so much for that. I just want to let you guys know, one, we cannot control Twitter spaces. I was kind of cursing Elon's name while we were doing the activity. And we hope that the next one will be a lot clearer because we want to hear you guys and definitely want you guys to hear us. But two, these are the types of stories that we want to amplify and hear. So please get in touch with me. Please get in touch with the campaign. Please get involved. We need to know what's on your minds and how we can serve you. And I'm not going to take up any more time, but I am so grateful that you guys are doing this and taking the time to discuss Mr. Kennedy's plans. And I truly hope to see you guys all on the campaign trail. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly.
Thank you, Holly.
Thanks a lot. While we're talking about affordability, Can we talk about the cost of rent and why so many people are going homeless and why these tent cities are getting so large and why we see working people who have a full-time job for a low wage or working several part-time jobs and still can't afford a basic one-bedroom apartment? We're all struggling with it. We are a nation of renters, unfortunately, because so many people cannot afford home ownership, can't get into a home. They're having to rent. And my lease renewal, I've been in my place for 8 years. I'm a renter. And my rent just went up. They just increased my rent at lease renewal $400 a month.
It's called greed.
So, yeah, I mean, geez, that's why I'm taking a third job.
It's called greed.
It's crazy, and they're making up for lost time because during the pandemic, they lost a lot of tenants. So the place where I live practically emptied out. People were moving out because they just couldn't afford their rent, and it took a long time to fill those places back up. And so I know this is part of the post-pandemic Bidenflation crisis that landlords are taking advantage of. And we're only going to see those Bidenvilles, those tent cities under our bridges get larger until these rent prices come down to affordable levels. And so I just wanted to throw that out there because I know a lot of you people are feeling it like I'm feeling it. I'm sure you've had ridiculous rent increases over the past 3 years. And it's something that I haven't heard Kennedy address yet. He talks about, of course, making homes more affordable. He's got a great idea to help the people who are already homeless. But I don't know what he can do or might be able to do to bring rents down to, I mean, Franklin Delano Roosevelt tried federal rent control during the Great Depression. Unfortunately, there was a very conservative Supreme Court at the time, and they threw that out. For a while, we did have federal rent control. Now it's just down to localities, to cities. That some cities do have rent control. Some people say it works. Some people say it doesn't. But we need some innovative solutions. If not rent control, what can we do to make housing more affordable, especially for renters? Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's a great point to the distinction between, renting. I think how getting people able to buy homes again is tremendous. Like that, that's obviously the number one issue on most people's minds right now. And that gets people to the point where they have a stake in the system, like we were talking about before. But renting too, that's you can't just ignore that. Like not everybody is in a position where they're gonna buy a home. Like, people out of college, people my age, like I'm not gonna be buying a home for a while, even if it was easy. So I appreciate that distinction. And I wanted to mention too, any political junkies who are, just interested in political stuff more generally, the fight between FDR and the Supreme Court in the 1930s that Lori just mentioned is fascinating. I can recommend a great book on that to anyone who's interested. That was a wild, wild fight that happened during FDR's first term.
Oh, I'd love to read that. Do you know the title of it? Or can you send it to me?
Yeah, it's called Supreme Power by Jeff Shessel. I
Oh,
can
okay. I
DM
like
everyone.
Jeff's
Yeah.
work, but I wasn't aware of that book. I'll look for it. Thanks, Holden. I'm a
Yeah,
big
no,
FDR fan. I do a lot of reading about FDR. So I hope that Kennedy sees this moment the way that I see this moment. It's sort of like the election of 1932. We are in a recession. We're sliding towards depression, if not outright economic collapse in the United States. This is that golden opportunity moment. Look at Biden as the Herbert Hoover of the situation, and Bobby is the FDR. And I hope that he's looking at things like a national jobs program, a works progress administration, innovative solutions like we had during the New Deal, because the American people need a New Deal right
Yeah.
now. Not, that's just not talk. I mean, a real concrete plan of action. We need a government of action that fights for working families. And I think Kennedy's the guy.
Can I interject real quick?
Sure.
Because he said that tonight in the space. I thought I heard it kind of like that. It was about the Peace Corps being in our country, making jobs for youth, I thought, but maybe I misheard that.
yeah, he did talk about that as well. I think he talked about it in a slightly different context, I think. I don't remember perfectly about, providing service projects and opportunity for, social mobility for young people. But yeah, I should go back and listen to that part again.
Well, there's a distinction that's important. The Peace Corps is a volunteer opportunity. It's not a job. It's not like a federal jobs program, which is why throughout the years, most of the Peace Corps people that you saw joining the Peace Corps were financially comfortable. They were usually middle class, or had pretty wealthy parents. So they would do it during their college years or their early 20s. Take a couple of years off, go serve in the Peace Corps because they could afford to volunteer for their country. And, it's another thing that I talk about a lot, is that people don't have, for example, a lot more people in listening to the space right now would probably love to have more time available to volunteer their efforts for National Days of Service, for the Kennedy 24 campaign. I'm one of them. Obviously, I'm working 3 jobs. I don't have as much time as I used to when I was only working 2 jobs to volunteer for the campaign. I've had to take time off from my volunteer duties. I can't even attend the Zoom meetings every week because I'm so busy working at that time of day or time of night. But I'm talking more about a national jobs program. It's great that people who can afford to volunteer to join the Peace Corps to do that for their country, absolutely. If you can afford to take that time, or maybe you're retired and you have some time to spare to volunteer, that's awesome. But the
I
American
think,
people need relief. We need help.
yeah, yeah. I think he's aware of that, though. I mean, I got the feeling that there was some sort of, I'm going to have to go back and listen myself, but I thought I heard that, he wants to put a program together like the Peace Corps that went abroad, but here in our country, and that there would be, benefits for folks that like earning ways to get a house and stuff like that. Okay, that's what I heard. So I'm going to have to go back and listen.
That is
Holly's
Yeah,
giving the
correct.
thumbs up, so it
Yes,
sounds
that
like
is correct, you
yeah.
guys. And I'm taking notes and I'm gonna pull the policy on this and pull the videos on this and send it to Holden and kind of distribute it for you guys so you guys can see what Mr. Kennedy's talking about exactly.
That'd be wonderful. And we've actually talked about that in past spaces. I think we did that last week as well, which is that this idea of civic service, it does a lot of things. It solves so many problems at the same time. One, it helps a lot of communities that are suffering, helps people. Like, you imagine if there's an army of people who just show up in your town and start fixing things, like how amazing that would be. And also, young people learn job skills. They get friends, like real friends, not online friends. They actually feel like this common identity in our communities, right? That these, as Americans, it's so often we walk by each other under bridges, or we walk by each other on the street, or veterans who don't get service. And these sorts of actions, having young people feel like, in this country, we also disrespect our elders a lot. And we just lock them away in homes. So one of those service projects could be going into those elder homes and doing elder care and actually reconnecting with these other generations. So there's a lot of couple birds with one stone.
I agree. As much as, and it would also teach our children empathy.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about that last space for sure, but that tremendous idea to, work more of that in. And I know, around September 11th, the Kennedy campaign did do that. I would love to see more things like that. Fantastic idea. Jay, I'm gonna turn it over to you now, my friend. Been waiting very patiently. Thanks for joining us. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Good night. Thanks for having me up here again, Holden. So, I want and what's up, Lori? What's going on, Liberty, Bryce, Robin, everyone else? So, just wanted to, share an idea for people to think about a little bit. So, I don't know if anyone here is familiar with the World Economics Forum's plan for, digital identity. I'm pretty sure most people have, heard of the concept before. But what they're doing is they're actually, perverting an idea that could be good if it wasn't centralized and able to be controlled. So I think, decentralized identity is something that can actually solve multiple problems at the same time. And I think it can help, address some of our voting issues. I know election security is a big issue for a lot of people, as well as the cost of living and rent issue that Lori brought up a few minutes ago. And the way it could do that is essentially right now, when we are online, we create a digital footprint that's being monetized by marketing agencies, and we don't receive any of the profits that's being made on our data. If we had something called a decentralized identity, that would solve a lot of our privacy concerns because we would have full knowledge and control over how our data is used and who's able to access it. So we could do that, and we'd also be able to monetize. We'd also be able to, monetize. Well, at least receive a portion of the share that's being a portion of the money that's being made off our data. So it could essentially function kind of like a UBI, because we're already online producing this data anyway, but we're not receiving any of the money for it. So I just wanted, and just so everyone knows, the difference between this and what the World Economic Forum is proposing is they want a digital identity that they can control, and that they can turn it off or control what you have access to whenever they want. Whereas with a decentralized identity, similar to a system that they like what they have in Estonia, you actually have control. And if anyone's never heard of the system they have over there, if you doctors can't even access your medical records without you approving it. So you have knowledge of everyone who's accessing your digital information, and you can control how it's accessed. So it could solve a lot of our problems with one stone. I know it's a little bit of a technical, like item, but I think it's something worth looking into. And I know some people are probably, turned off at the idea of a digital identity because the World Economic Forum has poisoned that phrase so much. But the key is decentralized. That's what makes it different from what the World Economic Forum is proposing. So it could essentially put a little bit more money in our pockets, which could be used to, help ease the inflation concerns that are happening right now, and help us deal with some of these cost of living increases. So just wanted to throw
Yeah,
that out there.
that's great. We've actually talked about the Estonian digital ID thing before. I brought that up a few months ago, and you're right about that. It's about giving citizens the power over these systems and these identities, because your identity plays such a big role when we go online or voting, healthcare. You mentioned a couple of them there, and that's super important, even though it feels a little techy sometimes.
Yeah, a little techie, but I mean, that's totally, we have not worked out privacy in the technological age yet. There's a lot of our constitution, frankly, we have not aligned with the digital age yet. So, Jay, I appreciate you bringing that up, my friend. Yeah, go ahead if you want to jump in again.
Oh yeah, really quick, I'd encourage everyone to go to eestonia.com to just, look at a little bit more about how their system works over there. It's not perfect, but they're actually really advanced, and it's surprising. When I learned about what they were doing over there, I was kind of shocked that we weren't already doing some of the same things over here. But it could really be a game changer and help put us in control of our data, and how it's used. But I'll go
Yeah.
ahead and give the floor back.
And I actually, when I read about that a couple of years ago, because they've been doing that since the early 2000s, their innovations in Estonia, I actually flew over there for a couple months and studied and worked with them, because like they're so far ahead of most countries with that stuff. But anyways, I think we need to go over to some of our speakers. Is it Liberty next, Holden?
I want to go over to Reckoning first, just because he hasn't gotten a chance to speak yet. Liberty, sorry, my friend. I promise we'll get to you next. But Reckoning, go ahead and jump in. What's on your mind?
No, Holden, I just want to thank you for the space, and so many resonating topics tonight. I really don't know where to start, but going back to what Lori has said, not only working 3 jobs, but also rent and mortgages and everything else. Um, it's above and beyond a breaking point, I think, for many Americans. And beyond that, you go back to where we first started on the space with the MIC and retooling that. there are, I mean, I know Liberty knows this just from living in our area, that there are so many manufacturing and machining companies geared up for aerospace, that could easily pivot over to the space, quote unquote, space race. um and it really wouldn't take much, but that's all I really wanted to chime in on. I agree with everything that everyone has said. And beyond that, going into childcare, um, been there, done that. It's friggin' really hard when you're a starting family, and you have two working parents trying to pay for daycare and everything else. But again, do you really want to put your children in the hands of what we're looking at right now, as far as an institutionalized you know society? So that's all.
Hey, thank you for joining, my friend, and I appreciate you mentioning the point about space as well. Like a couple of other people have said on the panel tonight, space is obviously not the most pressing issue. Like people are struggling. A lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck and really struggling in this country today. But I do think, it's worth talking about the fact that there's a real potential to, as you put it, retool the military industrial complex towards space and put all of that energy, those resources that's currently going to wars, around the world, towards space, which is moving humanity forwards. That's advancing our future as a species. Going into the next era, the next generation. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, it's not even space for that matter. I mean, you look at all these companies. You look at General Dynamics, you look at Sikorsky, and you look at all of them that operate in our area and in Washington State, and down in Texas. You know, they are quote unquote defense, quote unquote, contractors. So it's even a matter of pivoting away from the war machine to strong national defense would go a long way. But that's yet to be realized. And yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great point as well. I mean, we have not, we have so underfunded, underappreciated our actual defense capability. Like, the Defense Department, defense and companies are supposed to be focused on defense, but should just go back to the Department of War, probably, right?
Yeah, and do you mind if I jump in real quick here? I was gonna say though, like if you're looking from a global perspective, um, space is probably the one of the most important things for poor people or people suffering day to day because in Africa, South America, those wars they bring to you, that they dropping bombs on you and changing your economy and assassinating your leaders, I'm pretty sure that has devastating impacts for working class people most of the world, whether you're in Africa or South America or Southeast Asia. So yeah, as Americans, we see it as a distant thing. Like we see all the wars that they're doing that we just let them do for 20 years at a time. But if you're a working class person, probably the biggest threat is the military industrial complex to your paycheck.
That's a great point, actually. Yeah, that's a good point that it is, a very direct impact for a lot of people. And as we've talked about on these spaces before, there are so many ways to use advances in space to help people on the ground. Like India, they put up satellites and provide data from those satellites for farmers. They help, small farmers. There's a lot of things you could do along those lines that do help, but that's a good point, Levi. Let's get over to Liberty now. Liberty, thank you for being so patient, my friend. Go ahead and jump in.
No problem, guys. I understand hosting now a little bit better now that I've done a few. So you guys are doing a great job of balancing that out, and I'll more than happy to hold my hand up. It's important that everybody gets a chance to speak because we all share a different perspective. And first and foremost, Greg or Sherry, I always say this to every veteran in the room: I'm glad you made it home. I'm glad you're here. Welcome back home. Because what matters most is, I think, Gregor, you mentioned something about raising your daughter. Sherry, we've talked before. I know you have a family, so there's nothing more important than that in the big picture. And so I just wanted to get that out there. I wanted to go back to Lori's point about rent, if I may, for a few moments, and then I'll touch on space and circle back through what we've been talking about real quick. I witnessed a friend who was trying to buy a home, and there was a house for sale a mile from my house, Ray's Ranch, and he bid on it. Was looking pretty promising. Next thing you know, a cash offer comes in, and boom, that house is gone, out from underneath him. Still hasn't bought a house, still struggling to find one. That house went and got new siding. It got a brand new paved driveway, and up, next thing you know, within inside of 45 days, for rent sign for more than what a mortgage would cost.
I don't
And
have
I
funds,
know
but where are
Mr.
you
Kennedy
looking?
talks about that a lot. So yeah, rent costs are high. Just this is why, because they're buying up all the single family homes. They're buying up all of the places where you can buy to build equity as an individual. The middle class doesn't exist without that equity and a place to invest. And that's what's so important. And it does tie into all of the greater pictures from everyone who's here who has shared their story of struggle with health issues and disabilities and finances. I've been there. I will tell you, when my wife and I were first engaged, my first son popped up when I wasn't expecting it. We were already in debt. We had no health insurance. We were forced into a health bill bankruptcy. So I get it, through my own way. And that was a long time ago, and I've rebuilt. So it took a lot of help from others for me to rebuild. So that's why the hope that Bobby puts out there is so important to me, why it resonates to me, because I have been there in my own way. Like Robin was saying, we all take our own path. So I thought I would share my path with you guys, because I know it's easy to listen to me talk about space and think about the moon, returning to the moon for this country to be under a Kennedy presidency, and the beauty of that would be of history. I don't mean that from a privileged place. I think of it as a place of hope for all of us, because if we're doing that, that means we fixed everything that you guys are talking about that you need help for. Because I hear you. Mr. Kennedy hears you. Don't ever doubt that for a second, because we dream big, but we also play big. And the way we play big is together here. And I can't ask for a better group of people. So thank you so much for letting me on stage again here tonight. And I hope you guys come to more spaces. There's a lot of people out here, including myself, that host them, because we love talking with each other. And I'll close with this. Mr. Kennedy has taught us how to talk again politically about tough subjects without attacking one another. There's a lot of diversity in this room, and I'm so proud of it. And thank you for being a part of it with me. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us, taking the time to be with us tonight.
Thanks,
I think,
Liberty.
yeah, thank you, man. I think, what you said right at the end there is such an important point, that Bobby, this campaign has created an environment where we're able to be honest about the issues, the rampant corruption. We're able to be honest about the real terrifying extent of the problems we face without ever letting it get personal. We have to be able to talk about the corruption without it ever getting personal. When this is not, us against none of us in this room are against each other. None of us in this room are to blame for these problems. So we've got to figure out how to work on it together. I appreciate that point. I do want to
Can I just say
start
one real
wrapping
quick
up
thing?
in the yeah. I'll turn it over to you in 1 second, my friend.
Oh,
I
I'm
just
just gonna
want to
say
say I
one thing
want
real
to.
quick.
Yep, go ahead.
If you're gonna debate somebody, do it civilly. That's all I ask. Because if you don't, you're gonna make everybody else look bad. That's all.
Precisely. If you're, I appreciate that. If you're in a debate, and you're not being civil, it only reflects badly on you. It's everybody listening to that is just going to see like, oh, that person can't stand behind their ideas. They have to resort to insults and whatnot. So appreciate that. I wanted to say I do want to start wrapping up the space in the next 10-15 minutes or so. So I'll get around to a couple more hands, and then I want to give Holly, Lori, Levi a chance to give a closing thought before we wrap up. But Robin, go ahead and jump in, and then we'll go to Sherry.
Hi. Well, I have a question for Holly, and she may not be able to answer it, or maybe she will, or maybe she can take it back to Kennedy. I've been posting based on my listening of Kennedy's podcast with Jack Carr. At the very end of that podcast, he talks about an Israel policy paper that possibly is dropping soon. I don't know when. And they both talked about it at the very end. And so I put it out that he's working on one. He's working on an Israel policy paper, and that we hope to see it soon, because there's this whole thing with people at Kennedy people that, oh, he's this, he's that, all that stuff. I'm sure you've seen it online. So if you either know that that's really true or not, or that you could say, no, don't post that anymore because that's not going to really happen. I don't want to put out misinformation and then, him, so I just wanted to put that out.
No, thank you for that. I can't directly comment, and I will be joining your guys' spaces, and I just want to be myself and transparent. That's how I am, and the only way I can be my authentic self. So I'm not going to be able to comment on that, but I think that we all know who Mr. Kennedy is, his background, and there will intentionally be thoughts that he's going to be able to provide on that topic soon, okay?
Oh, that's perfect. That's all I needed to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know last week when we did the follow-up space, a lot of people had a question about that and just wanted to hear more. Definitely looking forward to hearing about, a more detailed policy paper around that.
Oh, by the way,
In
I
all
don't know if
his
you
free
guys saw
time.
the interview that he did with Dave Rubin. It was just posted a few days ago on Dave Rubin's channel, but Bobby talks for about 30 minutes about the conflict in the Middle East, and I think it's kind of a good outline of his upcoming, longer statement, more detailed statement, but at least it gives you an idea of what his current thoughts are on the situation.
I think I've seen that posted with some of the other left people, I mean, super left, that are totally against Israel. And they've been saying that he's, from that conversation with Reuben. I mean, they're using that conversation as a proof that he's, dug in, I guess is the word. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just glad to hear that I'm not like, hoping. And I did hear that comment, and I thought, you know what, I'm fine with his process. I feel like that's what we need in a president. We need somebody who's going to take their time and figure this thing out. I don't want somebody that's just ranting on, X about it. So yeah, that's all.
Yeah, Lori, if you wouldn't mind posting that, I don't if you can pull it up quickly. I actually missed that one, but would love to hear it.
I did watch it, but that didn't stand out to me what you were talking about, the Middle East part. I think you're just saying general guidelines of the conflict and how he perceives it, though. So perhaps that's what you mean.
Before we close tonight, I'd like to say that if there's any veterans in the room, or how many ever is veterans in the room, thank you so much for your service.
You are welcome.
If you look in the nest, I posted a link to that Dave Rubin interview. Bobby starts talking about the Middle East about 22 minutes in, and they spend a good half hour on it. It's a pretty good detailed discussion. If you haven't seen it, be sure to check it out.
What I did like about it, though, is it's also positive, right? Because people wouldn't assume Dave Rubin would necessarily agree with Bobby on a lot of stuff, but they were very civilized throughout the conversation.
I will definitely check that out. Yeah, I'm sorry I missed that one, and we'll definitely be interested to hear it. Let's go over to Sherry now. Sherry, go ahead and jump in.
Hi. First, I want to say thank you, Holly, for being here. I didn't even know we had somebody here that was listening to, get some of the stuff out to President. I just call him President Kennedy because I don't think there's any doubt that he's getting into office as long as everybody knows about it. So I just wanted to comment on Ryan's with the house on what Ryan had mentioned with the housing market. My parents, my mom and my stepdad were property managers for 30 years. So I know how market rates work. I know how that stuff works. And I don't even know where to begin. I have a whole page of notes right here, but I've seen so much corruption within the government, especially in Minnesota. Um, I was defrauded on a house in 2019. I bought it on my son's birthday, and the person wasn't a builder. He didn't have insurance as a builder, sold me a new construction house, forged my name on documents, even defrauded the VA. And I went through every agency. I've worked with the Department of Labor. They're accountable to nobody at the state level. I've worked with the Department of Commerce. The realtor fled the state, and now she's back here selling $1 million houses. I seen this in the real estate market where I got so fed up with this that nobody was helping me, and the city defrauded me. And I had documented corruption and mortgage fraud. I called the FBI here, and they told me we don't investigate crimes. And I thought I was living in the Twilight Zone. I honestly wouldn't even believe my story unless I'd experienced it myself. And what's happening when we went down to Florida or Arizona, we called ourselves refugees. We went down to Arizona, and what's happening is that there's companies that are buying all the properties in the neighborhoods. They're fixing the market rates. So this company actually told me my rent was going to go up $200 the next year. And I'd watched the prices of the houses and the rental down there in 2020. I watched the prices go up. They went up at least 25 to 30%. And it wasn't over the year. It was within like 3 months of me looking to move down there because I thought it would be cheaper and it was healthier to live because you're closer to the equator. I can grow a garden year round. Anyways, I just wanted to add that with what Ryan had mentioned, or Liberty had mentioned about, with them buying the houses and then just renting it for twice the price. It's like big corporations, and they're doing it to the telecommunication company. That's Verizon. They've monopolized the entire market there. And what these companies do when they do that, it's like they don't have to follow the laws. And, like for me, I'm a 100% service connected veteran. And it's almost like when they see that, they know they can take advantage of me. And what really was scary when I had the mortgage fraud, when I found out the title company and the real estate agency were owned by the same company and they had been paying the property taxes on my house for 5 years before they sold it to me, they knew that house wasn't new construction. I brought it up. The realtor got charged with 4 article violations of the Code of Ethics. Like, I brought that up to every agency under the sun here, even the Attorney General's office. I just wanted to speak up for like the veterans, because I know there's a lot of vets that aren't here to hear this, or to speak up and say something. But, there was a lot, like at one point in Minnesota, 29 veterans a day were committing suicide. And it was the saddest thing I could ever and I can only imagine why. It's like, when we're talking about, I know with President Kennedy on his policies, he wants veterans to have a seat at the table. He wants to make sure our benefits are protected. I'm going to tell you this. I applied for benefits in 2005, right before I was discharged. I was kicked out of the Marine Corps. I filed benefits 4 different times because the stuff they put in my mouth, I was actually allergic to. And then I found out it was toxic on top of it. And there was no accountability. I've fought more to get my benefits in the last 17 years than I have ever fought anything when I was active duty in the military. And it's insane. It's like we have to fight the VA system. I was sexually assaulted, and you know what they told me? You have to show us proof. Luckily, I had a witness, and somebody would testified to one of the incidents that happened, or they would have never gave me benefits. I mean, I was discharged with a personality disorder, which has the same symptoms of complex PTSD, but they don't even recognize that as like a thing. They don't even recognize the re-victimization part of complex PTSD. They just treat you like PTSD. Veterans that get discharged with PTSD, they don't get benefits unless they meet every single criteria for PTSD. And that's just wrong, So I started fighting them, and by 2017, this was the 4th or 5th time that I'd filed claims for my disabilities. And I had to get the senator's office involved. I've worked with Senator Klobuchar's office in the state, fighting with her office for 5 years to get health care with the VA. In 2019, when the Mission Act took effect. So one of the issues is my dental work. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but when they took all the metal out, I've had so much work done, my bite doesn't line up and my jaw teeters. I found out I have a muscle pushing on my jugular vein to my brain and also my vagus nerve, which controls your breathing and your heart rate. And I'm looking at a $60,000 treatment plan right now. And when I brought it up, okay, so the Mission Act, they refused to do the treatment. I found a doctor that could help me. They refused to pay. I couldn't afford the $5,000 for the treatment at the time. Now I have to see a neurological dentist. I was sent to an in-network VA private, in-network VA means it's not a doctor in the VA. It's a doctor they network with outside of the VA in the community. This doctor said back in June, like currently back in June, they said, she needs to see a neurological dentist. This is somebody the VA sent me to, and they're refusing to do it. I had Amy Klobuchar's office involved again. You know, in 2019, when they refused to honor the Mission Act, the VA congressional liaison told me to file a tort claim and run for Congress. That's what she told me. And I'm like, who am I? Nobody knows me. I didn't even know who my family was until I was 35 years later, that they were congressmen and senators and ambassadors. And I don't even know why that is at this point. But regardless, when I was working with their office right now in 2023, and I posted everything publicly on my Twitter page, I also have another page for the campaign because I've been working like 60, 70 hours a week since President Kennedy went independent to try to help promote him and get him in the office. And when I wrote to the senator's office, she said, you know, like, we're only a representative. We can't make them do anything. But if you can bring us the statutes and what they're violating, you know, we can speak for you. So I did. So I said, okay, you have 29 days to get me to a specialist, a provider. It's going on 3 or 4 months now. This is happening like round 2. And it's like, so the senator's office wrote them, and they basically said, well, we're following the Mission Act. So I wrote them back and I said, well, what about
Sherry?
Yeah,
I don't
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I don't
I'm
mean to
almost
be rude.
done.
I appreciate your passion. Yeah, I just trying to get to a couple more hands before we wrap up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I just have like 30 more seconds and I'll just finish it up? I'm sorry. But I was just saying, like, this is part of the homelessness.
Don't worry about it, Sherry. Don't apologize. You're good.
I'm trying to keep it on topic with housing and homelessness. And there's a lot of homeless vets because we have to fight for our benefits. And nobody can live off Social Security disability. You know, I told the Social Security office, I can't afford to be disabled. I would die, you know? But okay, so anyways, getting back to the senator's office. So I brought up the fact that Section 112 of the Mission Act states that they need to pay even if it's not with a contract within the VA. And they came back and told the senator's office, this is our last response. We're not going to add anything further. We are not going to pay for it. She can use her disability money that I'm getting right now because I can't work to pay for it. I'm like, $4,000 a month doesn't pay for a $60,000 treatment plan, which is barring me from entering the U.S. Public Health Service. I'm partly through my master's in public health, and I don't even want to finish because what's the point? You know, if I can't get into the job that I want, what's the point of doing that? That's a medical disqualifier with what's happening with, I have a malocclusion and my arch is off. So anyways, I just wanted to add that. So the senator's office, their hands are tied. They're not following the Mission Act. They're just saying, this is how we do things, and this is how we're going to continue. And I'm like, but it's wrong. And that's what the same argument is every time I have to fight with them. And within their departments, they can't even decide. Like the VA GI Bill department says that I should be medically retired. I should have been medically retired. Well, then they turn around, they like, I have to fight to get my discharge upgraded. I have to fight to get my benefits. And now on December 1st, I have a hearing with a law judge to see if they're going to give me the 11 years of back pay that they never paid from the time I got discharged. So I just wanted to add that because I'm not the only veteran that's experiencing this in this state alone. I've talked to others at the VA that have tried to help me that work in the community care department, and there's nothing they can do either. And I'm just hoping, like, I'm trying to be a state lead here in Minnesota for the campaign. I'm working really hard. And, you know, he says that he's going to let veterans have a seat at that table. And, you know, I would love to have a seat at that table because I was on the verge of moving out of the country until I found out he was running for independent. And I am so motivated to see him in office. Like, I can't even tell you how happy I was to see him. So that's all I have to say tonight.
Sherry, please check your DM.
Okay, thank you. I'll do I just want to give this my undivided attention. So I'll check it when we're done here.
Thank you for that, Holly. And Sherry, I appreciate your passion here. I appreciate you sharing with us tonight. I'm glad that this campaign can restore some sense of hope for you. I think, you're not alone in questioning, is this country where I want to live in the future, if it doesn't change course pretty dramatically. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
my
want to
service.
get over to.
Sorry.
No, you're all good. If you want to say one more thing, go ahead.
I just want to add something real quick. Like when I was in the Marine Corps, my service was cut short. I was medically injured. I didn't get a chance to serve. I didn't go overseas. That's why I never thought I had PTSD. I'm like, I didn't go to war. And for the first time, I feel like I'm serving this country by doing this campaign. And that's why I put in so many hours and I work so hard. So I just wanted to add that. Like, this is my service to you guys, to this country.
Sherry, we love you. Thank you for being here tonight. We love and appreciate you, and appreciate all that you're doing for the campaign. You're, putting that energy into the right place, I hope. Thank you for being here. Jay, go ahead, my friend.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? So, I don't know if this was discussed earlier, but just to kind of, circle back to the, the main topic of the space, which I know Sherry was speaking a little bit about too, but making America affordable again. One of the reasons why I was attracted to the Kennedy campaign, is because of his plans with Bitcoin. So, in case anyone here hasn't heard about what he wants to do with it, he wants to make Bitcoin one of the assets to back up the dollar. So instead of it being a purely fiat currency with nothing behind it, he wants to back it up with gold. I think he said oil, Bitcoin, and a few other hard assets. So the dollars are redeemable, for something else. And just so everyone's aware, the reason that plays into making America affordable is because our current system, which doesn't have the dollar tied to anything, it's just like paper money printed out of thin air. Allows the Federal Reserve to print, as many dollars as they want, and the more dollars the Federal Reserve prints, the lower value the dollar has. So, that's why Kennedy was referring to the war machine earlier. Right now, we're printing all these dollars to go fund wars. By backing up the US dollar, we can actually slow down inflation. And that's one of the primary reasons why things used to be so much cheaper and living used to be so much more affordable before. It's because we've completely devalued the currency. So, I'm looking forward to, seeing more of the detailed plans of exactly, how RFK, wants to, back up the dollar and, what the conversion rate will be and all that good stuff. But, all in all, I think, finding a way to strengthen our currency will go a long way. And he's also said, he wants to protect people's rights to own Bitcoin, and mine it and all that good stuff. So I know some people who aren't tech savvy might not be too excited about that. But, it is likely that Bitcoin will become a bigger and bigger part of the financial system because this current system we have is dependent on central bankers and people, in back rooms making decisions, whereas Bitcoin allows us to take a lot of the functions that are, being performed by them and decentralize it so anyone can participate in it and verify it. So for anyone who doesn't know how Bitcoin works, I'd strongly encourage you to just take a look at it. It could be a pretty good way for you to protect some of your savings. So I know a lot of people are having financial difficulties right now, but if you're holding American dollars in your account, or you're in the stock market, you may want to diversify a little bit. I never tell anyone to put all of their money, into one thing. So definitely don't put all of it into Bitcoin and only put, stuff into it that you can save for the long term. But it would be a good way to preserve purchasing power, to strengthen the U.S. dollar, in the medium term and in the long term. I kind of feel like the world will probably move towards that as the base of the new monetary system. But at least in the medium term, we can slow down inflation by backing up the dollar with Bitcoin. So, I'm really excited about that. And, I think that could go a really long way in preserving the power of our currency.
Yeah, and Bitcoin is definitely better than a lot of the other cryptos they have out there because it has Liberty built into it, so it gets more ethical as it scales. But real quick here, I was gonna just say, Holden was fortunate enough to be able to get up, and I'm gonna try to request as well, and some others here. But I think it would be good if we use these debris to maybe come up with a question we'd like to ask for next week. And just throwing it out there.
That would be great. And I'm thinking I might even create an email for you guys to send inquiries. But feel free to
That
reach
would be
out to
great.
me, holly@teamkennedy.com, and I'll pass along anything you send me to the campaign.
That would be great. Yeah. I mean, we kind of just threw these spaces together to follow up and debrief. So if anyone has other ideas for how these can be, most useful towards the campaign, please let me know. We are open to ideas. And I wanted to mention too, Jay, great great point about the Bitcoin policy. You know, that was the partially the other question I was thinking about asking. I ended up asking about AI, but I was thinking about asking about, you know, the gold standard and getting onto something of the Bitcoin standard. You know, with slowly, I think he said just a few percent of bills would be backed by Bitcoin at the start, but tremendously important topic. Yeah. And again, anyone can DM me and let me know, you know, how we can make these spaces most useful, and we'll make sure it gets to Holly as well. Reckoning, go ahead, and then I think we'll wrap up with co-hosts and Holly.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, I raised my hand when Sherry was speaking because I totally feel her pain. I was adopted. I didn't find my birth father until 2018, and when I did, it was basically
Is anybody talking about curiosity?
no, the silver bullet as far as finding my birth father was he was a Vietnam vet. He was in Cameron Bay. He was handling Agent Orange, unloading it off the docks, and I was I was born with the Chiari malformation, and that was what would basically seal the deal as far as
Is anybody talking?
what's that?
I think he unmuted by accident.
Oh, no. But basically, I I went through 40 years of my life not knowing what was wrong with me until I figured out who my birth father was, and not knowing what was wrong with me, what was wrong with my motor skills or anything until that point. And it was a revelation, but it goes back to you know basically environmental contamination, birth defects, and everything else. But you know um I have no qualms. I have no recourse. But you know my whole life, my whole development was stymied by you know war, unnecessary chemical contamination, and that's all I gotta say. I whatever.
No, and that's an important issue you bring up here. I was actually just carrying on with, I was in Vietnam for a while, and till this day today, we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars cleaning up Agent Orange out of Vietnam because it's affecting you, but it's also affecting millions of Vietnamese children, innocent people. And I think it's a small microcosm of a larger problem with the morality in our foreign policy, treating others as we wish to be treated. The golden rule of any civilization that's moral is to try to treat people, whether it's the poisonings in the fields with pesticides, or in the drugs, or in the way we allow these other countries to be for generations poisoned. I mean, that's not just environmental contamination, that's contamination of the human spirit. So these are all things that we can combat through a campaign like Bali, where he puts that morality into the policy. Because you're right, it's a poisoning, but it's a poisoning of the mind as well.
Thanks, Levi.
Yeah, thank you, my friend. It's a real issue, and I appreciate you coming on here and being willing to share with us, and that this campaign can offer people in your position some kind of hope. So thanks for being here. Holly, I'd like to turn over the mic to you before we wrap up. Just let people know what can we do for the campaign, how if there's anything we could do to make these spaces more useful. But yeah, go ahead and wrap us up. Holly, are you with us?
She might be
Did
doing
she
work as
unmute?
well.
She might. Yeah, she might. Okay. Lori, would you like to go ahead, and then Levi as well?
She wanted to give us a moment of silence.
Did she forget to unmute?
That's fair. That's fair.
Are you there, Holly? You want to go first? I don't think she can hear us. Okay. Well, I'll just wrap
Sorry,
up.
I'm just gonna say quickly, Holly, if this might be a glitch with the space, so I'm gonna drop you down from the speaker panel and then invite you right back up, and that might fix it. Lori, go ahead.
Just wanted to thank everybody for tuning in, for attending the volunteer meeting, for those of you that made it earlier tonight, and to Mr. Kennedy's space, and to this great after party. I think I like the after party best because that's when we get to hear people's real life stories about their struggles in this country that Bobby so often says, and he's right, that people can't afford to live in anymore. And it's not right because Americans are hardworking. We're not a bunch of lazy bums. We've got our struggles, we've got our illnesses, we've got childcare costs and rent and groceries and gas, and the list goes on, not to mention utilities as we are now going into the winter. And I don't know about you, but a lot of us are coping with $500 and $600 heating bills every month. That'll break your budget if you're on Social Security, if you're on disability, or if you're just working a low wage job. So we've talked about the problems tonight. We all, I think, understand the problems that we're facing, and I know Kennedy does too. And, I know that he's working on solutions. He might not have the answers tomorrow, but rest assured, he's thinking about it. He's working on a plan. And I do trust that his plan is going to be solid and it's going to be something that's reasonable, something that can be paid for in a way that hopefully Republicans and Democrats who control the Congress can agree on. I'm hoping that the Kennedy administration will bring a new spirit of bipartisanship to D.C., because that's what we're lacking right now is we can't get anything good passed due to the division and the 50-50 split. So I do have hope, even though these are dark times. I do have hope for brighter days ahead. And Kennedy's the public servant that we need. I hate using the word leader. I think we as Americans put way too much faith in the president alone to fix everything. I think that's a flawed way of looking at government, at politics. It's really the Congress that gets things done. The president can only motivate Congress and work with Congress to get legislation passed. Outside of that, the president really can't do much. As Teddy Roosevelt said, it's a bully pulpit. And that's Bobby's job, is to use that bully pulpit to convince the Congress to do something good for the American people for a change. And hopefully some sort of rent control or rent reform will be in that package. That's my key issue right now, is affordability for housing and dealing with homelessness, because the rent is too damn high. And on that note,